I'd like to call us all to order for this regular meeting of the Danville City Commission for Monday, June the 10th. The hour is 5:31, and we do have quorum. And I will ask that we be led in prayer by Commissioner Atkins.
Okay. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this season, and we thank you for such a lovely weekend that we just went through in this community. We ask you to continue to lead, guide, and direct us in all the things that you would have us to do, and we pray and ask that the things we do tonight, that they will all be pleasing in your sight. It's in his name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. We led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Sears.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Commission, you have had the agenda since last Friday, and I'm going to assume, unless you say otherwise, that it meets your approval. And we'll move right on to hear the public. This is the public's opportunity to address any items that are on the agenda. There will be an opportunity later on to talk about any item that's not on tonight's agenda. Do I have any takers for 3 minutes at the microphone? Seeing none, we'll move right on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Chair will entertain a motion at your discretion.
I'll move to approve the minutes from Tuesday, May 28th, 2019 as presented.
Thanks, Commissioner Sears. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any discussion? None. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 will be the first reading of ordinance number 1930. This is the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. Do we need a reading of that, please?
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1930, an ordinance of the City of Danville, Kentucky, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 by appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
cost, unfortunately.
That's right.
I attended the Pulse of the People meeting with Magistrate Jamie Gay, and there was a property discussed there. Has anyone touched base with you about that?
No, they have not. I'm not aware if they've called any of my officers. I can follow up on that, but
Okay.
they haven't contacted me directly.
Okay, I'll just give you that address and see. You weren't there either, were you? Okay. It's on
Yeah,
Old
if you can just
Shakertown
send it to
Road,
me, we'll
so-
follow up and see if there's anything we can do.
Okay, yeah. Don't let me forget to do that.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
One of the things in the future we'd like to look at is maybe changing our mowing period for the grass and weeds. That's something we can discuss in the future. But right now, because we have times outside of that window that grass is too high, and right now we can't enforce it unless it bleeds over into our nuisance in some way. So something we'll come back to in the future, but to ask about extending that to maybe all year as a possibility, but we'll give you some examples on that. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
What is our time period right now for mowing?
It starts May 1 to end of October. And see, this year we really had some grass very high in April.
Yeah.
And we're getting calls, but there wasn't anything we could do to enforce it.
Okay,
So that's what we're looking at.
okay.
I would like to make one more positive comment. I did this last meeting, and this is our mayor and the city commissioners backing them on and putting some meat behind codes enforcement. So if you look at your list of 10 condemned properties, once again, like I said last time, you look at the top 6 and things are happening. So that's really positive. And this actually came up in a town hall meeting with a magistrate about why something can't be done about this or that. So if you look down through 7 through 10, you see that you cannot find the owner nursing home. It's just a difficult process, but trying to get it done.
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 4, city manager report. Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir, Mayor and Commission. I distributed a memo to you tonight that I will not read in depth, but it is for the record, but I'll share with our members of the public who are present that memo serves to give notice of my pending retirement as of December 31st of this year. Now, I have enjoyed working for Danville in the role of city manager since my appointment as acting in 2011. I've had a total of 35 years by the end of this calendar year of service to Danville and other Kentucky cities. And I've sort of concluded it's time for me to turn to the next chapter of my life and have a little more flexibility and priority of family and community events, as well as some personal endeavors. So it is with very mixed feelings that I make this announcement tonight, but it provides reassurance to my wife, who's always wondered where I go every second and fourth Monday night for several hours. So I appreciate her support for my time spent at the City Hall and being of service to our community. It's been great working with the elected city officials, as well as maybe I should read this.
Or have somebody read it.
As well as our dedicated, employees. It's a great city, and we have a great future here. So this notice is being given tonight to facilitate a smooth transition and enable our city to move forward with continued progress. It gives you the opportunity to improve upon the skill set of your next city manager, and I'm sure you will make improvements in that process. I would give you the recommendation that I do have, though, and that is that the selection of a city manager is facilitated best, in my view, by the retaining of a professional search firm There are those throughout the country that specialize in providing recruitment services to cities and counties and other units of local government, and even some cases state government. And it can greatly facilitate the process for you as you determine what type of person you want, the networking that those firms have with individuals throughout the country. And I think it will expedite and result in a much better outcome than would otherwise be the case, and do so at a more effective cost. Now, I included in your memo the information that, you know, I, as a member of ICMA, could, under certain ethical guidelines, provide assistance to you in that process, as could our Human Resources Director. But I would say, in terms of searching for the best candidate and having a discussion with an independent and professional search firm that can help you really sort of determine what skills you're seeking and what experience levels, I think the outcome would be optimal if you follow that path, and that's the one I'm recommending to you. I do intend to actively serve until the date of my retirement, which is December 31 of this year. And so I intend to be active in that role. I don't know what else to say at this time. I'll be happy to respond to any questions. You know, I mentioned 35 years of service. I also mentioned, or should mention, that on my next birthday, I'll be 70 years old. And so it's sort of time to, again,
But as you note in your memo, it's a young.
it's a young 70, although as I strained my back this weekend, I was debating that young phrase. So anyway, it's been a pleasure to serve, and I look forward to being effective as your city manager until you select the next one. Thank you.
Well, we're not going to get all sappy up here at this point in time because we'll do that later on.
Yeah, right.
But to say that you have served in an exemplary fashion would be an understatement. With your recommendation, I'd like to see how the commission feels about and how much time you think it would take for us to pull together some resources that could coalesce some qualified individuals.
Well, I could, within a week, provide you with a suggested list of qualified firms to send out a request for proposal to, if that's what you're asking. That would be pretty much the extent of my intended assistance, just giving you those suggestions, and then you can take it from there.
So with that said, Commission, I know you're out.
I'm out of town until
Tuesday. First day you're back is Wednesday the 19th.
Yes.
How about you? You available to meet at noon to go over his?
What day?
Wednesday the 19th.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Atkins?
I'm shaking, hold on.
And you'll be back as well.
I will. Mhm.
That's the 19th?
Mhm.
Juneteenth?
Juneteenth Day.
Juneteenth Day?
That's right.
I'll be sober enough for noontime to call. Just kidding.
That's good. Good to know. That's good to know.
So the 19th at noon, you would like to see the
Yeah,
recommended firms?
right. We'll see if we can't whittle that down some. Thank you, sir. Anything else? Any other bombshells you want to drop on us?
No bombshell, but we do have the need for a brief executive session tonight to talk about other personnel matters other than this one.
Okay.
Well, Ron, the mayor said we were not going to do a whole lot, but I don't want to sit here. Since I was sitting here the first day, you took the position, and I want to be the first to say thanks and to commend you for a job. He said, well done, extraordinarily done. But I thank you from this city commissioner who has been sitting here during your entire tenure, so thank you.
Any other comments?
Mayor, if I may, too, I've said this publicly before, but I feel compelled upon Ron's statement now to say just a couple of things. Ron is not only a consummate gentleman and professional, but he's a scholar in that he has an innate ability to be able to circle his head around complex issues and be a reasoned, rationed sounding board in the true kind of scholar that is lost in society today, to appreciate ideas that are not his own and fully consider them to develop a positive solution to complex problems. I, for one, will sincerely miss working with him. The city is a better place because of his service. And in a time that was often rocky, Ron was the anchor that steadied the ship and set the trajectory for success. He and Janice, both in their service to the city, are to be complimented, and the city is indebted to you both for that long length of service. I'm also excited for the city in that this will be the first time in probably decades where we will be able to foresee a peaceful transition of power at the head of this government. And like the United States was somewhat shocked when they viewed that between Washington and Adams, I have no doubt that Ron is the right person to see that ship stay steady through this transition. You have had the perfect gentleman, professional, and scholar in this position for some steady amount of time. So Ron, thank you for that.
If nothing else, we'll move right into the Hear the Public. This is the opportunity for the public to address any subject not on tonight's agenda. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. Is this on?
No, reach around the back side, yeah.
Take a switch.
Okay, Bridget. Is it on now? It's on now?
Yeah, testing.
Mark
testing.
Morgan, appreciate this opportunity. I want to chime in and thank Mr. Scott. I've had the privilege to work with him on a number of different issues, some where we agreed, some where we disagreed initially, and we came to a rational and respectful conclusion on those. And I think we have been very well served. I've seen Ron deal with adversity in a respectful way that did not inflame, but he's been willing to hear, consider, and really take into account the comments and thoughts of people who agreed with him and people who disagreed with him, and our city is much better for it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If not, we'll go right into commissioner comments. Anyone?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we had a very good, although rainy, brass band this weekend. The rain plans were very creative, I thought. The parking garage actually was, ended up being very cool for concerts, and then also Cowan Hall did as well, mostly because you could go up to upper levels and have a very different atmosphere. So, but it was good.
I don't know if any of you were part of the Saturday night that they had in Norton Center. I was over in the Cowan Hall, but apparently with all that they did involving Bruce Cottle and the giving away of a very special trombone to our own Dudley Spoonermore, they said there wasn't a dry eye in the place. And so I'm sorry I missed that, but I'm happy for Dudley, because if you know Dudley, he's a humble guy. He's just a humble guy.
And Bruce is special, too.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
Go
went
ahead.
to Pioneer Playhouse Friday night, and I've been going to Pioneer Playhouse for 50-plus years now, and at the first play indoors. And that was really quite different, but quite enjoyable. And if you have not been out to see the opening play, I want to encourage everyone to do that because it's well done. I had dinner as well, and the dinner was well done as well also, right? Nice atmosphere. And I was going to say something about Memorial Day and the ongoing recognition for World War II vets. I've been really impressed with what communities, our community as well as surrounding communities, have done to recognize the surviving World War II vets. So, again, an opportunity to thank all veterans, but especially World War II vets for their service.
Just trying to look through my calendar to see if there's anything that I missed.
Well, the Government Scholars students came back to center yesterday.
This is the best software for us to have. There was a couple lower bids, but the software did not meet the needs that we had asked for in the RFP completely. And that's the only reason that they were lower. This will be a completely, it'll be a cloud-based program, and we will have cybersecurity on this program. It'll be easy, as my memo said, it'll be more user-friendly for not only staff, but also for the public when it comes to water bills and seeing what is given to them. They will have a portal they'll be able to log into, as will staff in order to see things. This will bring us up to more electronics. It'll give us more internal controls from which we need to build upon, and it'll replace 2, maybe 3 softwares in the future.
And Michelle, I don't want to question your judgment, but I was just shocked when I saw the numbers.
Yes.
I mean, these other guys are 3 and 4 times the amount?
This was the only system that we got to bid that we felt that would be useful. That is 100% fund software. that is a government software, and without getting too accounting on you, this software, because it is a smaller software package, it's a family-owned business, and they only deal with public sector. They have honed their product, and they feel like if they can get us with their product, get people with their product, that they'll stay with them and they make their money on their monthly maintenance fee, which all of them do that also.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
But like I said, regardless of the three that we narrowed it down to, of the three, regardless of price, this was our favorite choice.
Wow.
Do I hear a motion?
I will move to approve Resolution 2019-06-10-02.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am.
Man,
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of
Just a
the
minute.
motion?
Sorry, I just want to
Yes,
ask
sir.
one more question to
Sure.
Michelle.
Sure.
Just for the benefit of everybody sitting here, and certainly ours as always, how will we pay back in efficiencies by having this software?
It's going to, well, like I said, it's going to replace two other softwares. It's going to pay back in more accuracy in billing, for one thing. It's going to be more accurate, and it's going to be, we have to change softwares. Like today, we have software issues every week now with the two software companies that we have. We have to change we have to make a change of some sort, because the softwares, we've outgrown the softwares we have, and we're unable to, for example, I ran a report today that took 4 hours to run because our software's just overloaded. And it shouldn't take 4 hours to run a report. And it's just because our software is overloaded with, we've outgrown it. But eventually, it's going to be more accurate. It's going to take time off. It's going to, it'll take out human error, because we won't have, right now we're having to manually enter in to a system. It's going to assist more out in the utility field. They're going to be able to see things. Your utility customers are going to be able to see things. Your managers are going to be able to see things to manage their departments better. Overall, it's just going to be a robust software that we've needed for a long time.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. There's usually a good reason. I think we all run through it in any of our small companies. It's like, software, son of a gun.
Any further inquiries, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 8 is Resolution 2019-06-10-03. This is a surplus list for IT that you have before you. Chair will entertain a motion at your convenience.
Yeah, I move to accept resolution number 2019-06-10-03.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Discussion.
A lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff on this list.
Okay. If somebody wants to bid on these things, how do they do it, Michelle?
If they want to bid on these items, then most of them will be done in lots, and they will be on our new program where they can go. They can all go take a bid. It's on our website where you can log in. Anybody can log in, other cities, or just regular people. Just to make a note, there's a lot of computers on here. The computers are hard driveless. We are required to destroy the hard drives, and we do so as required. So a computer that's listed on here doesn't have a hard drive in it. And we do note that on the website.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 9 is Resolution 2019-06-10-04. Hello, Mr. Castle.
Change order 2 is related to the last change order 1. We stretched the pedestrian bridge, we need to stretch the guardrail. That's all it is. another extra 50 feet. It'll improve the safety there, it'll improve the visual cues for drivers coming down there and funnel into the bridge better, and also funnel people over to the pedestrian bridge. And it'll all look a lot better once we get grading done and the beautification. And it helps with the changing the end of Jackson.
Oh, I thought it was on.
Changing the end of Smith Park down there. So we'll be finishing some stuff up there and it will blend in together. But it's basically improving the safety of the drivers.
And this is in the amount of $2,500. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval of Resolution 2019-06-1004.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
It looks, I don't know if you guys,
I drove down last week.
yeah, it's looking good. So, looks like you're about ready to open it up.
Today we paved the base course of blacktop DGO underneath the action setup. We're hoping to have a good guardrail once it's approved tonight, Wednesday or so, and the last surface on Thursday, and we'll look at the last.
You heard about the, well, I want to compliment you because I was out walking this morning outside before it rained, and a citizen stopped me in that area and said that they had met you and was impressed by the things that you were doing, that they, I guess, was excited about seeing a supervisor do some of the things that you were doing at that project site. So I want to give you that compliment.
Interested in that, a lot of folks have come by and made comments, like today when we were paving, you could look around, there's half a dozen people.
Yeah.
And everybody was walking, so everybody's antsy about getting open up.
So maybe a few more weeks?
I'm hoping maybe this week sometime.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Okay.
Great.
You know, this is almost like commissioner comments, but the bridge was needed because of the weight load and so forth. But with the renaming of the park and the trails going down there and creek cleaning up, if you haven't been down there, it's really brightening up that part of our city. It's just opening up nice little waterfalls in there and great picture opportunities. So,
I enjoyed the other part of it too, is it being in the middle of town like it is, you still see a lot of wildlife. You get, you know, the cranes flying over and the deer coming through there.
Interesting.
There's a lot of things.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Item 10 is Resolution 2019-06-10-05. This is in regard to the Corporate Drive Phase 1 change order. Mr. Coffey?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. As we indicated in the memo, the funding agencies require a balancing change order to reflect the actual as-built conditions for the material used. The first portion is the corporate drive, the economic development portion. It adjusted quantities. The net impact on the project was an increase of $2,021.50. The resolution authorizes the acceptance of that change order into the contract for Phase 1 on corporate drive.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
I'll move to accept Resolution 2019-06-1005.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
have a question. Yeah, I'm kind of a mosquito up here, aren't I?
No,
JH, you got a swatter out, too.
I'm just curious, this may be a new word for me or it's a typo, but actual quantities actually installed in the filed as built, is that field? Is that what you meant? I was kind of confused by that.
In the field, as built, as it was constructed, as it was built. That's an industry term.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
It should be field and not filed, right? Is that what you're looking at? There's a
Yeah,
typo?
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Or not.
It says in the field.
That's
which
in
is-
Earl's memo. That typo's mine. Excuse me. I see it. It says filed. It should be
Don't let it happen
field.
again. Don't let it happen again.
Excuse me.
Oh, in the resolution document, yeah.
I'll take that one. I'll let Earl have some of the other bigger ones, but I'll take that one.
I'm sorry, I was looking at my memo.
Let's see, do we have a motion?
yeah.
We have a motion and a second?
I
Yes.
made the
Yes.
motion.
Okay, yeah.
I
So
was-
any further discussion? Yes, sir.
What, for the amount, is $2,168? Girls
And
tip.
on Corporate Drive, it's $2,021.50
$0.50.
on Corporate Drive.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 11 is resolution number 2019-06-10-06. This is a Perryville Road Phase 1 change order. Again, Mr. Coffey.
Correct. Same terms and conditions. Rural development funding, the balancing change order netted out an increase in the quantities. Total cost impact was $2,168 additional to that phase.
Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval of Resolution 2019-06-10-06.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Discussion?
So does this mean that the estimates were both within a couple $1,000s and we just have to we're changing this to the actual cost?
No, that's what you're doing. That's correct.
Right.
The
Okay.
field quantities are reflective of going around a tree and little things, little
Right,
nuances
right.
that the contractor and field personnel make.
Yes.
Yep.
Any further questions or comments? If none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 12 is a discussion with regarding parks and recreation and a potential ordinance. Councilman Dexter, or Councilman Dexter, yes.
I feel like there should be a drum roll before this is unveiled. As the draft is being circulated, I want to emphasize emphatically that this is a draft, D-R-A-F-T. It's marked on each page. It's marked in red on the front. This is meant to be a discussion starter. It is, I would love it if it met everyone's approval upon first reading. However, I'm not that naive. I know that this is a starting point. Again, a draft. That's why it's labeled on every page. And I want to start the discussion that way because what we have attempted to put before you is quite complex. We have tried to sift through a multitude of cavernous issues and put forth a product that will be a new start for Parks and Recreation in this community, a new collaborative effort between the city and county to allow a unified park system to be abundantly successful. I have tried to put before you a draft ordinance that collects all of the comments that have been made, the concerns as I understand them to be before you. That being said, I may have missed the mark. I'm admitting that to begin the discussion. There's a reason that it hasn't been unveiled, and partially because myself personally have gone through about 10 to 15 of these drafts. And what started out as an attempt from our joint meeting to offer two separate ordinances. One, which would be for a unified park system that is collaborative between the county and the city, and one that would be just for Millennium Park. In an effort to try to do that, it became, to me, more complex than it needed to be. So what I have done upon long reflection is propose one ordinance that will be easier to amend should the county wish to strike certain portions, as opposed to having two drafts and say, we like this section and this one, we don't like this one and that one, let's mold these together. Therefore, I've created one ordinance that will be easily amendable if necessary upon the discretion of each collective body. With that being said, this is the first time you've seen the ordinance, and I would like to walk you through it, and both for the benefit of the community, and it will be presented in Millennium Park, the trail system, and any other jointly owned park by the city and the county. Those 3 buckets of costs will be split equally between the city and the county. It is understood that the maintenance and capital expenditures in parks owned by the county will be their expenses only, separate from the first 3 buckets. That's a 4th bucket. The 5th bucket would be cost of maintenance and expenditures for parks wholly owned by the city. Again, that's a 5th bucket. And then I've added a provision here at the end that says, notwithstanding the foregoing, the city and county may enter into service agreements for current or existing service projects, meaning a service agreement could be in place for the continual operation of the Bunny Davis Center or a future swim gym, whatever it may be, that if future services projects are going to take place, this contemplates that the city and county can enter into service agreements for their development, regardless of where they're located. And that will allow future collaboration through those types of agreements. I didn't want the ordinance itself to have a sticking point on Bunny Davis or a sticking point on a future nautical center because we don't know we have an engineering report that says Bunny Davis has outlived its useful life. Why do we want to throw it in and create a monkey wrench, so to speak, and throw the progress of the future in Parks and Recreation on Bunny Davis Center? I don't think the city wants to do that. I don't think the county wants to do that. So we're allowing for agreement through a service agreement and trying to focus on what we can agree on. I believe through my understanding of the issues in our joint meetings that we agree on programming costs, personnel costs, and the future operations in Millennium Park, the trail system, and any other collaboratively owned venture. Okay. We're also clarifying that the city's supply of water, and sewer, and stormwater services to the parks will be included in the city's share of contribution to the park system, which the city currently provides and has since their inception. The next section talks about the composition of the Parks and Recreation Board. That's largely unchanged. The only change you'll see at the end of that section is that the city manager or his or her designee and the county judge executive shall serve as an ex officio member and an advisor, an observer to the board. That's a change, but it's one that we think would be well serviced for the longevity and ensuring success of the Parks and Recreation Board, and to enhance collaboration between the entities involved. The next couple sections there are unchanged as currently written, and then in the next section it's talking about officers. And it shows that the board is going to elect from its membership, just as they always have, a chairman, secretary, and treasurer. We're also clarifying here that the treasurer and any other person authorized to sign checks, that's an addition, is going to be required to be bonded. Copy of that bond provided to the city and county annually. Again, that's just clear accounting and auditing work and responsible expenditures of public funds. We think that's a necessary change. You also notice that the previous ordinance required Parks and Recreation to retain and compensate an attorney. We have struck that from the ordinance as we think it's rather duplicative, and why would you fund that? It's unnecessary if we're going to be in a collaborative situation, and we simply added that in the event that legal counsel is necessary, the city and the county shall provide the use of its respective counsel to the board. Again, that's going to enhance the teamwork atmosphere and attitude. That's the goal, anyway. The next section 6 talks about a budget that is presented by Parks and Recreation. The current ordinance requires Parks and Recreation to submit a budget by February of each year to the respective bodies. We have pushed that date to April, and that'll be clear as we go through the next section here. But we're saying that should be presented by Parks and Recreation to each body in April of each year. And we're going to request, again, that the itemized budget, again, and I'm referring to these 6 buckets. That's not a legal term, that's just my explanation of it. Again, so the different sections of the budget should contain the following. 1 being programming costs, which of course is maintenance of any plain areas and inside of the park. That's included as a programming cost. Personnel cost, and then proposed maintenance and capital expenditures in Millennium Park or any other jointly owned park by the city and the county. Again, those first 3 buckets are the ones that the city and county are going to agree to split 50-50. Those are everything that we've agreed upon, so I understand it. In the 4th bucket is going to be proposed maintenance and capital expenditures for the countywide trail system. That's going to be included. Again, that is a shared cost as it's written. I made it as an additional item as opposed to in the 3rd bucket, simply because the county was unclear whether they were committed to investing in the countywide trail system at our last meeting. So again, instead of having a separate ordinance that says this one has it, this one doesn't, this is a clearly underlined item that they can strike if they choose not to fund trails. Number 5, the 5th bucket, would be proposed maintenance and capital expenditures for any county-owned park. And 6, proposed maintenance and capital expenditures for any park owned by the city. What this does is it allows the park board to prioritize capital needs and expenditures for what is in our sweet spot, which is Millennium Park and any jointly owned venture, the trail system, and then county parks and city parks. We will hopefully agree to split 50-50 the first 4 buckets. And then I would say in bucket 5 and 6, those would be somewhat a wish list that the Parks and Rec Board thinks would be desirable. And then the county will take their look at that bucket and say, we want to do X, Y, and Z, or we don't, and that's up to them. And likewise, we would look at section 6 at the city, and you would make a determination what you have the funds to advance or not advance. We think that is an organized approach to looking at this funding mechanism. The ordinance would also require a joint meeting of the city and county by the end of February of each year. And again, that is to be utilized to establish a funding level or agreed upon funding level between the 2 bodies to say, what are we going to use for the first 4 buckets? That will allow Parks and Rec to then develop and finalize their budget to propose to you by April. But you have to set the funding level first. So that's why it's a bit unfair to ask Parks and Rec to create a budget, submit it to you, and then you say, well, we only have funding for X amount of dollars, and then go back to the drawing board. I think this is a more organized approach. The city and county set the funding level by end of February. Parks and Rec can then present their budget in April. It's at that time that the city and county may also say, if we have additional funds available, look at capital expenditures or improvements for our other parks that may not be jointly owned. Last, the budget is going to be accompanied by an independent, comprehensive annual audit. Again, those are just minor language changes in the existing ordinance. The next section is about accounting procedures and financial records, and it preserves the right of the city and county to audit the books and records of the board to confirm that the funds are being spent in accordance with the budgeted purposes. And it also will require the Parks and Rec Board to transmit electronically to the city a copy of its monthly general ledger detailing all transactions. And if you'll remember, this is simply a requirement that's been added to the city's funding agreement with all agencies funded over $25,000 a year in the furtherance of your fiscal responsibilities. And last, obviously, failure on the Parks and Rec Board to transmit that type of information would result in the withholding of future payments until the records are received. Again, that's just solid transparency and accountability measures put into place. Section 8 talks about the powers and duties of the Parks and Recreation Board. And again, what we have attempted to do here is to allow the board to focus on its sweet spot, and that is programming. So we've changed the language a little bit to show that the board shall program, maintain, and operate parks, playgrounds. We've added trails and recreation centers and deployed people for those purposes. So we've added trails into the language there, and again, the focus on programming. And this is the next, and I would say this is the last significant change to the ordinance, in case you're getting tired. And in order for
Tired? Who you talking to? Tired?
in
Fun up here,
in
man.
order for the Parks and Rec Board to focus on what it should be empowered to do, and that is to program the city's parks, we had, in the county parks, we've said that the board is going to assume responsibility for mowing and maintenance of any and all plain areas in the parks that it programs. So that means anything inside the fences, any playing field or surface that is utilized for games, competitions, anything that's programmed, they are going to assume responsibility for. However, outside of those playing areas, there's a lot of mowing in Millennium Park. There's a lot of mowing in Jackson Park, all these other parks. We think it would be most cost-effective and efficient to allow all extra mowing outside of playing areas in Millennium Park to be an alternate bid item in the city's annual mowing contract each year. The cost of that will be known. It will be presented at the joint meeting. The county can fund half of it for Millennium Park to the Parks Board. The city will do the work, invoice the Parks Board, and just like we do on other cost-sharing arrangements. So the city would handle all maintenance, mowing, landscaping as alternate bid items in our current existing contracts, bid annually, and the county would pick up half of the tab for Millennium Park and the trail system as alternate bid items, okay? And then it will also allow a cohesive approach to landscaping our parks in a unified manner with our beautification contracts, and will hopefully be at a more cost-effective price. And then we also add that in the event, as a courtesy to the county, the city will also add another alternate bid item for its annual contract to include county-owned parks only, and then offer that to the county should they wish to benefit from maybe a larger size contract and the price that may benefit from them, which could include Millennium Park or White's Park or whatever park they may own at that respective time. And should they elect to do it, that could be included in their funding mechanism as well. In the event that the city and county fail to have their joint meeting, then each body could respectively approve a budget for them. So I didn't want the ordinance we haven't had joint meetings regularly for almost a decade. So I didn't want there to be a mechanism in which the funding just fails by the failure of the city and county to schedule a meeting.
Yeah.
So we put a provision that in the absence of a meeting, then each respective body could propose a funding level in their budgets. That's a backstop. That's not something we're advocating. It's simply trying to have a rationed end in the absence of a joint meeting. With that said, that is the option that is before you. We are not asking for a vote, as this is a draft for discussion purposes only.
So let me ask, have you run this by our new Parks and Rec director, and if so, what his reaction is?
No, this is the first unveiling. The only person that has viewed this is the city manager.
Okay.
And so we have reviewed it entirely with this in mind. It is the most proper chain of command is for me to take instruction to prepare a document, vet it through the city manager, and present it to you. That is not only proper, but it's advisable because we wanted to have the first stake at explaining it. When you release a document,
Right.
it goes out, and sometimes it gets legs before there are explanations.
And with that said, I would propose that as soon as possible, you have a conversation with the county attorney as peer-to-peer, so that he can understand everything you're talking about in it, and then he and perhaps you in tandem can, at some future fiscal court meeting, explain this.
I'd be
And
happy to do that.
we can have some unfolding of a rational conversation
Yes.
here.
I'd be happy to do that. And upon the blessing of the city manager, we can do that as soon as possible. And I'm happy to attend and explain any questions that may arise by the fiscal court. In the absence of the presence of a city official or myself at that meeting, sometimes people can assume things from the ordinance by the way certain things are written that are completely unintentional.
Right.
We experienced that from 911, that sometimes I may simply be inartful or inarticulate in what I am attempting to draft. And that's not by intention, it's just simply we think different ways and we read things differently. But and it also allows me the opportunity to revise on the fly if it was clearly something that I did not intend.
Well, I think in my mind, and I've said this to several, I want to avoid a 911-like disagreement or conflict, however you want to put it. Your draft document here, as I see it, is clean, forthright. I don't see a whole lot in here that you could misunderstand or misinterpret.
Is it now time to thank you for this?
Well, I would hold the applause.
Eight page. Well, no. We got to thank you for the effort you've done for us, because I think right now, I think this is outstanding.
It
Because
is.
it does encompass lots of options
yeah.
for both groups.
Well, thank you, and I hope that I know that the bodies wanted a document by the 1st of June, and I understood and respected that deadline. However, at the end of May, I was still somewhat wrestling with what I'd been drafting for 6 weeks, and it was only sincerely until the middle part of last week that I started to get very comfortable with final changes in this presentation.
Well.
And so it was a large thing to try to digest, synthesize, and find a solution that would work and I think would be palatable to both bodies.
The beauty of this is the simplicity of it.
Yes.
That was the attempt.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I had two alternate drafts, it was overly complicated. And I knew it was when I started having trouble explaining why I was doing certain things to myself. Mm-hmm. And so I think what we have here, the attempt was to have a simple, straightforward, readable document that we can discuss from a rational point of view and come to some sort of consensus towards enabling a thriving park system to be empowered to be successful.
So is your intention to, let me go at it this way. When will the judge and fiscal court receive this?
I'm happy, upon the direction of the city manager, to send an email directly after this meeting to not only the judge executive containing a copy, but the county attorney, as well as your new Parks and Recreation director, and allow them to disseminate it to their respective members. I think that would be most appropriate, as opposed to me handing it out to members of the respective bodies.
Would you include Commissioner Cottle in that email, because he's absent tonight?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, he needs to see it too, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments there, Mayor, because it'll be important. We talk a lot about the major fund givers, being the city commission and fiscal court. But in this ordinance, it's giving some power of direction to the Parks and Rec Board, so we will look forward to their input as well. So getting that documented to them will also cause some comments here.
Sure.
So one of the things that I do want to comment on that I thought was interesting and is in some of your buckets, if you would, is where we have a separation of the city only owns the park instead of a joint park, and how do we handle it cost-wise. It looks to me that John and his board can say that we want to program certain parks that are owned by the city. Are you willing to help fund that?
Right. So in that dynamic, and these are some of the conversations I look forward to having, because we're somewhat at 40,000 feet, but I want to look at nuts and bolts examples. So in the case we want to fund or program, rather, events at Jackson Park, let's say they want to have a disc golf league. Well, at that time, it's a programming cost in the first bucket. And any maintenance of that facility for whatever's programmed is in the first bucket. It's not in the fifth or sixth bucket, depending on who owns the park.
Yeah.
So anything that's programmed is in the first bucket. And that's why I think it allows, and that has not gone on. So we either programmed in Millennium Park or we didn't program other areas. But this will allow the Parks Board to use every park. And why not? Utilize every asset at the disposal and fingertips of both bodies and allow them to have a thriving program. And then if whatever they program will be a programming cost in the first bucket.
Sure. And bucket two is appropriate as well, because with programming comes personnel, and there's your bucket
Absolutely.
two. But that's going to be up to John and his board to
Right.
to pitch that.
And I think it allows creativity on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Director and their board, which essentially is should be empowering and not limiting.
And it gives the city and the county clear authority at any time to say, we want to see the expenditure of funds, we want to see income, receipt, and you're going to have a certified audit every year.
That's exactly right.
That's
right.
That'll be good. That'll be good.
And theoretically, none of that's new. It's just that we're putting it in writing and we're going to enforce it. Because a lot of the things that we're perceiving as being new are things that have been there, but we just haven't really enforced them.
Sure. Yeah.
Haven't asked for the updates.
Would you envision this document to be passed around? Here's the county's comments, here's the Parks and Rec Board's comments, and you just sort of grab it all and say, okay, here's where we're at, City Commission. This is what they've all said. How do you feel about it?
That would be my hope and desire. I would hope that each body would look, and when I mean the fiscal court, and I would hope that they would reduce their comments, their collective comments to writing, not a comment that one particular magistrate has about a particular issue, but I'm talking about something that is voted on or approved by each body that says, we think we have consensus to pass an ordinance if certain changes or revisions are made, which are as follows, and then just list them. And then something from the Parks and Rec Board, I would hope that it would be digested and they would look and hopefully review and make suggested edits or revisions, and then approve those at one of their meetings and then present them to us through their director. Likewise, there may be other groups or interested citizens who wish to make comment, and I think they should be heard.
In your email tonight, I think it'd be a good idea if you articulated that and asked the members of the fiscal court to reflect their thoughts to the county attorney, and same way with Parks and Rec director, and then let you and the county attorney begin to meld it together.
I'm happy to do that, and I should also mention I missed the last meeting. I was traveling, so I've not met the new Parks and Recreation Director, but I'm happy to offer myself to attend, again, with the city manager's blessing, to attend their meeting and actually review it with them and to ensure that it's understood as intended and to take feedback there as well.
If I may, I'll introduce you to John Bell,
Oh,
sitting right back
okay.
here.
Wave, John.
That's a segue into a question, if I may. Do you want him just to email you, John, you get it out to your board, or do you want him to email Bryce and let him spread it?
No, it'll go through me.
Okay, all right.
I can do that before executive session, probably.
But you've done a great job.
Well,
And,
thank you.
I'm very optimistic that we should be really close
Yeah.
to
I hope so.
a working document here.
I hope so.
I can't imagine not at this point.
Well, and the final approval is that they can both be the same, way you presented it. And the final approval, they don't have to be the same, the way you presented it.
Right.
But the way you presented it, though, should move us to the next level, get something done.
That's the goal.
Yes, and you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
I'm so glad that
Yes.
you
Took the extra time.
only did one document.
Yes.
I just was not, I just was uneasy with two documents coming forth, and I just thought it was going to add more confusion. And so I appreciate your hard work, and I think this is going to be good, and I think it's something we can all kind of come to the table with.
Good. Thank you.
All right, item 13 is the second reading of ordinance number 1929. This is with respect to the 707 Shakertown Road zone change.
I'll move to accept that second reading of ordinance 1929.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second, that's right, you can't do, I'm sorry, that's right.
Thank you,
Second.
sir. We've been through this before. Is there any
Yes.
further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
And Mayor, I'll ask the clerk to read ordinance number
ordinance.
1929 into the record, please.
Sure.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1929, an ordinance changing the zone from GRA, General Residential Large Lot, and AR1 Agriculture Residential to Neighborhood Conservation Classification NCC for approximately 4.190 acres, more or less, of real property located at 707 Old Shakertown Road in the city of Danville.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Terry,
I'm abstaining for reasons previously stated.
Mayor Paris,
Yes.
Commissioner Saris,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes,
Item 14 is first reading of ordinance number 1931. This is the alcohol regulatory fee for fiscal year 1920. Madam Clerk, would you like to read that as well?
Okay, this is the first reading of ordinance number 1931, an ordinance establishing the regulatory license fee for the sale of alcoholic beverages in the city of Danville for fiscal year 2019-2020.
And Mayor, I should note that this is the city is required annually to adopt its regulatory license fee for alcohol. It is unchanged from the previous year. It's 5% of gross sales for alcoholic beverages sold by the drink. And for retail sale packages, it's 4% of gross sales. And the regulatory license fee is 3% on gross retail sales of packaged malt beverages. That is unchanged as well.
Okay.
And I'll note that we also meet the regulations that are set forth by the Kentucky statutes that we have to be able to prove that we've spent this money in the prior year in order to set those rates for this year, and we do meet that regulation. That study has been done.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept ordinance number 1931, the first reading.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Discussion?
I'll just note that there's no hidden restaurant tax in here. This is just about alcohol.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Paris,
You started reading the last time. Are you going to do it again this time?
No,
Because
she
she
started
well, I
keeps-
started with her.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Saris,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Terry.
Yes.
That is all for our regular meeting. Mr. Scott has informed us we do have an executive session. And I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
For
Personnel reasons.
Personnel. Would you stop? That's my cheat sheet. I will move that we go into executive session for personnel, to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61-810-1F.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. We are adjourned into regular session.
I
Do
will
I
move
hear a
that
motion, we move back into regular session?
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second? I'll second it. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We're in regular session. Madam Clerk? Madam HR Director.
Staff would ask that you promote Lindsay Yoakum to the position of wastewater rehab superintendent with the usual probationary measures.
So
Do I hear a
moved.
motion? Thank you, ma'am. Second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Discussion? Congratulations to Mr. Yoakum.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. No other business to come before us. Do I hear a motion, we adjourn?
So moved. Oh,
Motion made.
Second.
And is there a second? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, like sign. Have a good evening.